The Forgotten Ward. Part 1. The Callback Detective. Evelyn Marlowe sat alone in her office long after the precinct had gone quiet. The last of the fluorescents buzzed above her, bathing the walls in a sickly yellow glow. Her desk was littered with old files. Cases closed, cases forgotten. She was known among her peers for obsessing over the past, for dredging up histories others preferred to leave buried. That was why she wasn't surprised when the envelope arrived. No return address, no postmark. Just her name, typed in an old-fashioned serif font across the front. Inside was a single photograph. It showed the crumbling facade of a building Evelyn knew from rumour alone. The Ashthorne Asylum. The asylum had been shut down in 1974 after what officials vaguely described as structural instability and budgetary failings. Whoa. But the locals had whispered about something else. Unexplained patient deaths, experiments gone wrong, staff who vanished without records. The site had been condemned for decades, swallowed slowly by forest and fog. Beneath the photo was a note typed on the same kind of yellowed paper. They never left. Find Ward C Midnight. Her first instinct was to laugh. Prank letters weren't uncommon for detectives, especially ones like her who had a reputation for chasing ghost stories. But the timing was strange. For the past 3 weeks, Evelyn had been investigating a series of disappearances on the north side of the city. 3 people, no connection between them, gone without a trace. Each had last been seen travelling near the wooded outskirts, the very region where Ashthorne Asylum lay in ruin. Her pulse quickened. Coincidence? Or was this a breadcrumb? The drive by the time the clock neared 11:30 p.m. Evelyn had already made her decision. The city streets bled into country roads, and those roads dwindled into narrow paths cutting through dense trees. A damp fog pressed low, reducing her high beams to a muted glow. Her GPS stopped tracking several miles back. She relied instead on an old map she'd dug out of archives, an outline of Ashthorne from the 1960s, before it was erased from modern records. At exactly 11:58, she pulled onto a dirt clearing. Ahead, through the mist, the asylum loomed. Even from a distance, it looked wrong. The main structure was skeletal. Its roof collapsed in places, windows smashed into black sockets. Ivy choked its stone walls, and rusted gates hung open at crooked angles. A silence pressed against her ears, heavy and unnatural. She cut the engine. Some part of her told her to stay in the car, to drive back, to let the place rot in its own shadows. But her hands were already reaching for the flashlight, already holstering her sidearm, already stepping into the mist. Inside Ashthorne, the entrance was littered with debris, splintered wood, shattered glass, a wheelchair with one wheel missing. Evelyn's footsteps echoed too loudly on the cracked tiles as she swept her flashlight across the lobby. Old signs still clung to the walls, admissions, records, Ward A. But one arrow in faded paint pointed deeper into the asylum. Ward C, the air, grew colder as she moved forward, each breath fogging in the beam of her light. The smell was sharp, mildew, rust, something faintly metallic. She passed graffiti scrawled across the walls. Don't listen to them. They still scream. Leave. Her light flickered. She smacked it against her palm, muttering under her breath. When it steadied, she realized she was standing at the entrance of Ward C. The double doors were intact, but chains hung across them, fastened with a heavy padlock. A rusted metal plate bore a faded warning. Authorized personnel only. Her heart thudded. She crouched, testing the chains. Old, brittle. With enough force, they snapped. The doors creaked open, expelling a gust of stale air so cold it raised goosebumps on her arms. She stepped inside. The forgotten Ward C was different, where the rest of the asylum had been in disrepair. This corridor looked preserved. The walls weren't crumbling. The ceiling was intact. The tiles were stained, but not broken. It was as though time had stopped the day it was abandoned. Evelyn swept her light across a row of patient doors. Each had a small window with bars. Some still bore nameplates. She paused at one. Patient number 47, Marlowe, E. Her blood ran cold. She staggered back, nearly dropping the flashlight. Marlowe. Her name. No, she whispered. That's not possible. The plaque was rusted, but clear. Beneath it, a faint handprint smeared across the door in what looked too much like dried blood. She backed away, her heart pounding, throat tight. The beam of her light wavered across the hall. More plaques, more names, but each one was wrong. Patient 12. Carter, L. Patient 119. Reyes, J. Patient 132. Dalton, M. Her stomach dropped. Those were the names of the 3 people who had disappeared in the last month. She stumbled backward until her spine pressed against the opposite wall. Her breath came fast and shallow. This couldn't be real. Couldn't. A sharp clink echoed from deeper inside the ward, like a door unlatching on its own. Evelyn raised her gun, flashlight trembling in her grip. "Who's there?" Her voice cracked against the silence. For a moment, nothing. Then a whisper slithered through the corridor, soft and drawn out, as though the walls themselves breathed it. "You were always one of us." Her flashlight sputtered and died. Part 2. The names on the doors. Evelyn stood frozen in the suffocating dark. The silence was thick, broken only by the hammering of her own pulse in her ears. She had been in terrifying situations before. Hostage standoffs, late-night stakeouts gone wrong, killers who smiled as they confessed. But nothing had ever carved into her nerves like this place. Her flashlight had gone dead the instant that voice whispered. She smacked it hard against her palm, once, twice, 3 times. The bulb flickered faintly, casting weak light for a second, then cutting out again. "Damn it," she muttered, her voice barely audible. Her gun felt heavier in her hand now, more like a fragile comfort than a weapon. She forced herself to take a step forward. The corridor seemed to stretch endlessly, the patient doors yawning open into blackness. The doors, her fingers brushed one of the plaques again. Reyes, J. She had interviewed Javier Reyes's sister 2 weeks ago. The young man had been last seen heading home after his night shift. His car had been found abandoned near the North Woods, keys still in the ignition. Evelyn had promised his family she'd bring answers, and now here was his name, etched onto a door in a ward, abandoned for nearly 50 years. She pressed her palm to the door's small barred window and peered inside. The beam of her nearly dead flashlight revealed a small cot, an overturned metal chair, and walls lined with scratches. Hundreds of them, gouged deep into the paint. They looked fresh. "No," Evelyn whispered. She spun to the next door. Dalton, M. inside, the cot was unmade, the sheets stained. On the wall, written in something dark and smeared, were the words, "I can't get out." Her breath caught. She staggered backward, nearly tripping over debris. This wasn't just a prank. Someone had gone through extraordinary effort to place these names here. But how could they replicate the age, the rust, the decay? How could these doors look like they had been waiting all these decades for the right people to go missing? Then her eyes fell again on the first plaque she had seen. Marlowe. E. Her own name. A shiver crawled up her spine. She approached the door slowly, hand trembling as she reached for the barred window. She forced herself to look inside. The room was empty. Just a cot, pristine, sheets folded tight as though waiting for a patient. On the wall above it was a phrase carved so deeply the plaster cracked around it. "Welcome back!" The echo, the sound came again, the clink of a latch turning. This time louder, closer. She spun, weapon raised, light struggling to stay alive. "Show yourself!" she barked. Silence. Then, faintly, from down the hall, a door creaked open on its own. Her mouth went dry. Step by step, she advanced. The sound of her boots against the tile was almost unbearable, each one echoing like a gunshot in the stillness. She reached the door. The plaque was too rusted to read. Her fingers brushed the handle. It swung inward with little resistance, as if it had been waiting for her. Her flashlight surged weakly back to life, flooding the room with pale light. Inside, the room was different, not like the others. The cot was pristine, but there were papers scattered across the floor. Yellowed files, notebooks, loose photographs. She crouched, picking one up. It was a black and white photo of a young girl, maybe 12. Her eyes were wide, almost too wide, and her mouth hung open mid-scream. On the back, scrawled in faded ink, Subject 14, before treatment. Evelyn flipped through the others. More children. More faces twisted in terror, some restrained to chairs, others with strange helmets strapped to their heads. Her stomach turned. The notebooks contained entries written in a physician's hand. The ink was blotched and frantic. Treatment not effective. Subject still exhibits delusions. Ward C to remain sealed until further notice. We must erase the records before the board discovers. Evelyn's skin prickled. These weren't rumors. The asylum hadn't been shut down because of budgetary issues. There had been experiments here. She dropped the notebook, heart racing. That was when she heard it. A faint sob. The voice. Her head snapped up, beam cutting across the cell. At first nothing. Then, from the corner, the sound grew clearer. A soft, choked cry, like a child trying not to be heard. Hello? Evelyn's voice was steadier than she felt. Who's there? The sobbing ceased instantly. Her skin crawled. Then, from the hallway behind her, a different sound. The creak of multiple doors opening at once. She spun, light, barely holding, and her stomach dropped. One by one, the patient doors along the corridor were swinging open, slow and deliberate. Her heart pounded. She leveled her gun, backing away. "Stay back!" she shouted into the emptiness. But what emerged from the darkness wasn't shadows. It was whispers. Dozens of voices, overlapping, hissing through the air like a swarm of insects. They weren't coming from any direction. They were coming from everywhere. The walls, the floors, the very air around her. "Welcome home. We've been waiting. You should never have left." Evelyn's vision swam. Her legs felt weak. She stumbled back into the room she had entered, slamming the door shut. Her back pressed to it, breath ragged. The whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, angrier, and then silence. The shadow, her light flickered violently, then steadied. In the far corner of the room, something was there. Not a person, not a patient, a shadow, darker than the darkness around it, tall, elongated, its edges rippling as though it were water trying to hold human shape. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. The thing moved without sound, gliding toward her. Her instincts took over. She raised her gun and fired. The explosion of the shot cracked through the room, deafening. For a split second, the muzzle flash lit the room in brilliant light. When it faded, the shadow was gone. Her flashlight sputtered once more and died completely. She was left in the dark, alone, her ears ringing from the shot, her lungs gasping for air. And then, right beside her ear, a whisper. "You belong to us, Evelyn." Part 3. The records that weren't meant to exist. Evelyn's breath rattled in her chest as the whisper bled into silence. Her heart hammered so loudly it felt like the walls could hear it. She gripped her gun tighter, but it felt useless in her shaking hands. Darkness. Absolute. Her flashlight was gone. Her phone had no service. The asylum had swallowed every last tether to the outside world. And yet, she forced herself to breathe. Slow and controlled. Panic was the fastest way to die here. Whatever here really was. She pressed her palm against the wall, feeling her way toward the door she'd slammed shut. When her hand brushed the cold metal, she slid the gun into her holster and tugged the handle. It opened without resistance. The corridor beyond was quiet again. Too quiet. A trail of paper. Her boots scuffed against something soft. She crouched and felt along the floor. Paper. Her fingers brushed a trail of loose files, leading farther down the hall. She retrieved one and flicked her lighter. The dim flame revealed a hospital record. Patient number 12, Javier Reyes, age 24. Diagnosis, acute paranoia. Notes, subject believes he is being followed. Exhibits signs of sleepwalking. Recommended for treatment in Ward C. Evelyn's blood chilled. Javier Reyes had lived in 2024, yet this document looked 5 decades old. Its ink faded, its paper yellowed. She grabbed another, patient number 19, Maria Dalton. Diagnosis, hallucinatory episodes. Treatment, electrotherapy administered. Results inconclusive. Subject remains resistant. She dropped the paper. Her lighter flickered, threatening to die. The trail stretched ahead like breadcrumbs. Against every instinct screaming at her to leave, Evelyn followed. The records room. The trail ended at a steel door, slightly ajar. The faded label read, "Records, Ward C." She pushed inside. The smell hit her instantly. Dust, mold, and something sharper, like copper. Shelves lined the room, packed with files and ledgers. A desk sat in the center, papers strewn across it. A typewriter frozen mid-stroke with a half-written page still in the roller. Evelyn stepped closer, lighter trembling in her grip. The unfinished page read, "We must document everything, even if the board erases it later. Ward C is not treatment. Ward C is containment. They are not patients, they are—" The sentence ended abruptly, cut off mid-word. Her stomach knotted. She turned to the shelves, pulling random files. Each was the same: patients with no families, wards of the state, or individuals declared mentally unstable. Their treatments were listed in clinical detail: isolation, electroshock, experimental drugs. But what chilled her most was a pattern she hadn't expected. The handwriting. Some of the physician notes were signed. Dr. Henry Marlowe, her grandfather, family secrets. The lighter nearly slipped from her hand. She knew her grandfather had been a doctor, but she'd been told he was a general practitioner in a small rural clinic. He died when she was a child, and her family rarely spoke of him. But here, in this rotting asylum, his name filled the files of tortured patients. She flipped through one after another. His handwriting, his signature, his recommendations for treatments that could only be described as cruel. "No!" she whispered. This can't be him." Her voice cracked, thin and trembling. But the evidence was undeniable. Dr. Henry Marlowe had worked at Ashthorne, and he had helped create Ward C. The projection, a sudden mechanical click snapped her head toward the corner of the room. Her lighter's glow caught the outline of an old reel-to-reel projector, its reels slowly turning on their own. A beam of dim light flickered onto the far wall. Evelyn swallowed hard and watched. The grainy footage showed a row of patients strapped to chairs. Doctors moved between them, attaching wires, placing strange metal caps on their heads. Their mouths opened in silent screams as their bodies convulsed, and among the doctors, her blood ran cold. A man stood tall, his face visible for only a second before the frame cut. But it was enough. She had seen that face in old family photographs, smiling gently in a suit, holding her as a baby, her grandfather. The film jumped. Now the camera focused on a single patient, a girl no older than 10, strapped down, eyes wide with terror. A voice, faint and crackling, carried through the projector's dusty speaker. Subject 47 shows the most promise: exceptional resistance to sedation. She will remain in Ward C for further study. The camera zoomed on the girl's face. Evelyn's knees nearly buckled. It was her. The collapse. No. The word tore out of her throat. That's not possible, her mind reeled. She was born in 1988. The asylum had been abandoned in the 1970s. The timeline made no sense. And yet there she was, a little girl strapped to a chair, screaming silently into a camera 50 years ago. The projector sputtered and died. Darkness swallowed the room once more. Then, from the shelves, came a sound, a whisper. Dozens of whispers, rising, overlapping. Files began to shake, then fly off the shelves, scattering into the air like a storm of paper. The desk rattled violently. The typewriter clanged as if unseen hands were hammering its keys. Evelyn stumbled back, arms shielding her face from the storm of files. The typewriter dinged. She lowered her arm and read the paper sliding out of it, each word pounding into her like a nail. You were never meant to leave. The shelves toppled. The ceiling cracked. Dust and plaster rained down. The whole room shuddered, as though the building itself had come alive. Evelyn sprinted through the door as the records room collapsed behind her. Part 4. The Patients Who Never Left. Evelyn staggered down the corridor, lungs burning, the echo of collapsing shelves chasing her like a tidal wave. Dust clung to her hair and coat. She clutched her sidearm with trembling fingers, though it felt more and more like a child's toy against the reality of what this place was. Her grandfather, The patience, the impossible film. The asylum was not just haunted, it was alive, rewriting history, twisting time itself into a nightmare that included her. She reached an intersection where the hallway split into two wings. Left led deeper into Ward C. Right curved toward what her map suggested was the old infirmary. The whispers pressed from the walls, urging her deeper, but she forced herself right toward the infirmary. Logic was her last weapon. If she could find something, anything grounded, maybe she could hold on to her sanity. The infirmary. The infirmary doors groaned open with the weight of decades. The smell hit her instantly. Antiseptic long spoiled, mingled with mildew. Her lighter barely illuminated the rows of gurneys lined in shadow. Some still held shapes beneath brittle sheets. Evelyn froze, then tugged a corner of one sheet. A skeleton stared back, jaw half hinged in a silent scream. Rust-colored stains spread across the mattress beneath it. Her throat tightened, but she pushed on, scanning for files, cabinets, anything useful. Against the far wall, she spotted a locked medicine cabinet. She smashed the glass with her gun butt and rifled through. Most bottles were dust and broken glass, but tucked inside was a leather-bound journal. She pulled it free, flipping to the first page. Dr. Henry Marlowe. Patient notes, Ward C. Her hands shook as she skimmed. We discovered anomalies among certain patients. They do not age as expected. Their injuries heal rapidly. They speak of dreams shared with others, of voices guiding them. The board calls them delusional. I know better. They are vessels, doorways. Evelyn's stomach turned. Subject 47 shows the strongest link. The child resists all sedatives. She dreams even while awake. I fear she sees me for what I am. She calls me the Watcher, but she cannot know. Not yet. She flipped forward, heart racing. The board grows impatient. They wish Ward C sealed, destroyed, but they do not understand. If we burn it, we lose everything. I cannot let that happen. Even if it means keeping her here. Her lighter flickered. The next entry made her blood run cold. Subject 47 is family. I cannot write more. They would not understand. She must remain. She must never leave. The patience. The journal slipped from her hands. A noise rippled through the infirmary. A shuffle. A creak of gurney wheels. She turned, lighter trembling, breath shallow. The shapes beneath the sheets were moving, slowly, stiffly, like marionettes pulled by invisible strings. One sheet slid to the floor. A figure sat upright, skin grey, eyes hollow black pits, mouth stretched in an endless grin. Another sheet fell. Then another. Soon the entire row of gurneys shifted, figures climbing down in jerky, unnatural motions, their heads twitching at odd angles as though remembering how to move. The whispers rose again, overlapping in feverish waves. You belong here. Must stay with us. Ooh, Subject 47 returns. Evelyn stumbled back, gun raised. Stay away from me. The first figure lunged. She fired. The shot punched a hole through its chest. It staggered, then kept coming, unfazed, smile widening. Evelyn fired again, and again. Bullets tore through the figures, but they only faltered briefly before shuffling closer. Arms reaching, whispers rising, she bolted for the exit, heart racing. The chase. The infirmary doors slammed behind her. She sprinted down the hall, shadows twitching in the corners of her vision. Every step echoed too loudly, like she was running in a place that was more memory than matter. She turned a corner and froze. The corridor was lined with figures. Patients. Dozens of them. Their hollow eyes locked on her, their mouths moving in unison to form a single phrase. Welcome home, Evelyn. Her breath hitched. Her legs refused to move. Then the ceiling above them cracked, a section of plaster collapsing. The distraction gave her a chance. She darted left, deeper into Ward C. The heart of Ward. She burst into a wide chamber that looked nothing like the rest of the asylum. It wasn't medical. It wasn't institutional. It was ritual. Symbols were carved into the walls, spirals and circles that seemed to shift when she looked directly at them. In the center stood a massive chair, half medical restraint, half throne, surrounded by rusted machinery. Wires dangled like veins from the ceiling. Her lighter's flame sputtered, threatening to die. But in its glow, she saw the walls. Every inch was covered in photographs. Hundreds of them. Each showed her face, some as a child, some as an adult, some in places she'd never been, wearing clothes she didn't recognize. Her stomach churned. Her head spun. No, she whispered. This isn't real. This isn't. A voice cut through the silence, deeper and clearer than the whispers. Evelyn, she spun, gun raised. From the shadows at the far end of the chamber, a figure stepped forward, tall, broad-shouldered, white coat streaked with age and dust, his face gaunt, eyes sunken, but unmistakable. Her grandfather, Dr. Henry Marlowe. Part 5. The Watcher's truth, Evelyn's pulse hammered as the man in the white coat stepped fully into the light. He looked impossibly old yet preserved, skin pale, veins like rivers beneath parchment. His eyes gleamed not with madness but with a frightening clarity. Grandfather, Evelyn's voice cracked. Dr. Henry Marlowe tilted his head, studying her as though she were a specimen in his lab. His lips curved into a thin smile. "You came back," he said, voice low and steady. "Just as I knew you would." The words punched through her. "That's not possible. You've been dead for decades." "Dead," he echoed, chuckling softly. "That's what they were meant to believe. But death is malleable when one understands the design." He gestured to the photographs plastered across the walls. "You've always been part of this. You and I, Evelyn, we are bound to this place. To its truth." The revelation, her gun wavered in her hand. "No, I wasn't even alive when this place was shut down." "None of this makes sense." Dr. Marlowe stepped closer, and with every step the chamber seemed to warp, walls bending subtly inward. "You think time is a line, don't you?" His smile widened. "That your life began and theirs ended. But Ward C, it is a knot, a place where cause and effect collapse into one, where past and present intertwine." He extended a hand toward the throne-like chair at the center. "That is where you were created. Subject 47. My greatest work." Her breath caught. "Subject 47. Yes," he said, eyes glinting. "You are her, the girl who could dream while awake, the one who opened doors others could not see. The asylum gave you to me, Evelyn, and I gave you to the world." Her knees nearly buckled. The journal's words echoed in her skull. She must never leave. "I'm not." She shook her head violently. "I'm not one of them. I'm real. I'm me." "You are both," Marlowe said softly. The detective searching for answers. The child locked in the ward. "You've walked these halls before, many times, in many forms. Each time, the knot pulls you back." The choice Evelyn raised her gun, finger trembling on the trigger. "Stay away from me. Tell me how to stop this." Her grandfather didn't flinch. Instead, he spread his arms, as if offering himself. "To stop it?" His laugh was hollow. "There is no stopping it. The asylum chose you. It chose me. We are its vessels. Without us, the knot unravels, and everything it holds will spill into the world." Images flickered through her mind. Streets filled with shambling patients, cities swallowed by whispers. A world infected by Ward C. "You're lying," she hissed. "Am I?" His eyes narrowed. "Tell me, Evelyn, why do you remember rooms you've never entered? Faces you've never seen? Why do you feel it pulling you even now?" Her chest heaved. He was right. She'd felt it since the moment she arrived. The asylum wasn't just familiar, it was hers. "No," she whispered. Marlowe's voice softened. "Join me, accept who you are. Together we can master this place. Reshape it, control the knot, instead of being its prey." The apparitions, before she could answer, the chamber shuddered. The walls rippled like water. Figures emerged from the shadows. Patients, nurses, even orderlies, all with hollow eyes, their mouths twitching in unison. The chorus rose again. Subject 47 returns. She will complete the circle. Evelyn backed away, but the apparitions pressed closer, forming a ring around her. Their voices pulsed with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. Her grandfather lifted his arms as though conducting them. "Do you hear them? They are yours, Evelyn. They've always been yours. Without you, they are trapped in endless silence. With you, they can be freed." The whispers crescendoed, shaking the chamber. Her lighter flickered out, plunging everything into near darkness. Only the faint glow from the walls, symbols etched with something that looked like blood, illuminated the scene. Breaking point. Her mind reeled. The evidence screamed at her, the journal, the photographs, the memories that weren't hers but felt like they belonged. She wanted to scream, to tear the walls down, to run. But there was nowhere left to go. "Why me?" she demanded, voice breaking. "Why not someone else? Why did it have to be me?" Marlowe stepped closer, his expression softening in a way that chilled her more than his cruelty. "Because you were perfect," he whispered. "You were the bridge, the first true success. His hand hovered inches from her cheek, trembling not with age but reverence. "And you are still my greatest achievement." Rage flared in her chest, cutting through the fear. "I'm not your experiment." She raised the gun, aimed squarely at his head. For the first time he looked surprised. Then he smiled. "You can't kill me, Evelyn. To kill me is to kill yourself." The apparitions leaned closer, whispers deafening now. Her hands shook violently, but she kept her aim steady. Her choice loomed before her like a blade. Accept her role and inherit the asylum's power, or pull the trigger and risk unraveling the knot itself. Her breath caught, finger tightening on the trigger. The chamber held its breath. Part 6. The collapse of the knot. Evelyn's breath came in ragged bursts, the barrel of her gun steady on her grandfather's forehead. The ring of hollow-eyed apparitions leaned closer, their whispers pulsing like a second heartbeat in her skull. Subject 47 returns. Complete the circle. Her finger hovered on the trigger. Sweat stung her eyes. Dr. Marlowe didn't flinch. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Do it, if you can. But understand, pulling that trigger is not an ending. It is the unraveling. You'll destroy not only me, but yourself, and every soul bound to this place. Do you want their screams on your conscience?" Evelyn's teeth clenched. "Their screams are already here." Her finger tightened. The shot, the explosion of the gunshot cracked through the chamber like thunder. Marlowe's head jerked back, body collapsing against the throne. The apparitions wailed, their whispers shattering into 1,000 fractured voices. The walls pulsed with violent light, symbols flaring and twisting. The floor lurched beneath her feet. The chamber itself convulsed, pulling apart at its seams. Evelyn staggered, clutching at her head. A storm of images tore through her mind, herself as a child strapped to the chair, herself as a patient pacing the wards, herself as the detective walking the ruins, past, present, future, all folding into one. Her grandfather's voice echoed, not from his body, but from everywhere. "You cannot kill what you are, Evelyn. You cannot kill the knot, the collapse." The apparitions shrieked as the walls dissolved into a void. The asylum melted around her, corridors unraveling into strands of shadow and light. Evelyn's body felt pulled in every direction. She stumbled toward the collapsing doorway, desperate to escape. But each step only led her back into the chamber, as though space itself had betrayed her. The throne at the center glowed with searing light. Her grandfather's body was gone, yet the chair pulsed like a heart, the knot's core. She understood suddenly with terrifying clarity. The only way to end it wasn't to kill him. It was to take his place, the choice. The whispers steadied, almost coaxing now. "Sit. Complete the circle. Become." Her body trembled. To sit was to bind herself forever. To refuse was to let the asylum spill into the world. She thought of the patients, of the photographs, of her own fractured existence. Maybe she was never meant to escape. Maybe the truth was that she'd always belonged here. Tears streaked her face as she lowered the gun, staring at the throne. "No," she whispered, though her legs carried her forward. "I won't be your puppet. I'll end this on my terms." She dropped into the chair. The restraints snapped shut of their own accord, binding her wrists and ankles. The machinery roared to life, ancient wires snaking into her skin, fusing with her veins. She screamed as her body arched, light flooding her eyes. The asylum surged through her, every wall, every corridor, every patient screaming inside her head. And then, silence. The twist. Her eyes opened. She was standing in the middle of a quiet street. Daylight, birds chirping, cars passing. Her gun was gone. The asylum was gone. But something was wrong. People walked past her, glancing only briefly before continuing. Their faces, every single one of them, was familiar. She realized with a jolt, they were the patients, the nurses, the orderlies, the apparitions. alive, ordinary, living lives as though nothing had ever happened. Her heart pounded. She ran to a nearby cafe window and froze. Her reflection stared back at her. Not Evelyn the detective, but Evelyn the patient. Hair cropped short, eyes sunken, dressed in a faded asylum gown. Behind her reflection, faintly in the glass, loomed the asylum's dark silhouette. Its windows burned with light. A voice whispered in her mind, her grandfather's voice, calm, triumphant. You didn't escape, Evelyn. You completed the circle. You are the knot now. Her scream tore through the quiet street, but no one reacted. They simply kept walking, hollow smiles fixed on their faces. The final image, the camera, for your audiobook visual, would linger on her reflection in the glass, her asylum self staring back, while the world around her carries on in eerie normalcy. The faint outline of Ward C shimmers like a mirage, promising it never truly vanished.